My parents took my money, then left me behind for a trip with my sister. When they returned, their house was empty. And the truth shattered them all. I never imagined I would be the one to pen this tale. Yet here we are. Having spent the better part of 3 decades acting as an emotional punching bag and personal ATM for my family, my name is Sarah, and here is the story of how I finally stood up to them. Allow me to begin at the very beginning. Even though I'm 3 years my senior, my sister Emily has always been the favored sibling. She had an air of spontaneity and charisma that I lacked, whereas I was reserved and responsible. She spent money like water and never worried about consequences, since someone would always bail her out, in contrast to me, who saved every penny and worked part-time jobs through high school and college. In most cases, it was me. I got a fantastic job in Austin at a tech company just after I graduated with a computer science degree. And 3 years ago, when Emily was a sophomore in college, she left to follow her artistic goals, which mostly included working part-time at a shop owned by her mom's friend and creating lifestyle material on Instagram. Even though she was 27 years old, she was still living at home and wasn't helping out with the bills, in contrast to me, who has been sending $900 to my parents every month since I was 21 to put toward a mortgage. You'd think I'd be appreciated or respected because of this arrangement, but you'd be mistaken. On the contrary, I was scolded for being uncaring about my spending habits, antisocial about my job, and unsupportive of Emily's efforts. After years of driving a 16-year-old Honda, my mom thought it was arrogant of me to treat myself to a good car. My dad accused me of betraying the family when I got my own place. I continued to pay nevertheless. Through it all, I was there to lend a hand. I held out hope that they would see I was the one who had done the right thing and had merited their admiration and pride in due time. Parental announcement of a 2-week European vacation in celebration of their 30th anniversary was the last straw 7 months ago. I felt real joy for them because they've been discussing it for so long. After all their hard work, they were worthy of a relaxing vacation. "We're bringing Emily along," Mom said during Sunday dinner. I looked up from my plate perplexed as she said, "She needs some inspiration for her blog, and the photos will be amazing." Asking, "What about me?" Dad moved uncomfortably. "Emily is in dire need of this at the moment. She's been going through a lot of emotional turmoil over her future. I offered to pay for my own ticket because, honey, we can only afford to take one of you girls." However, a shiver ran down my spine as I uttered those words. The mother disapprovingly waved her palm. "Oh Sarah, I know how you get when you travel. All nervous and worried about schedules and budgets. Emily will be loads of fun when you're not around. Plus you can afford to take a vacation whenever you want." I sat there in stunned silence as they continued to plan their trip, talking about museums Emily wanted to visit and restaurants she found on Pinterest. No one inquired as to my preferred sightseeing spots or where I would like to go. I felt completely invisible. I returned to my flat that night and took stock of my life. For nearly a decade, I had been making payments on my parents' mortgage. Her car broke down, and she couldn't get financing, so I ended up buying it for her. Innumerable meals, presents, and unexpected expenses were covered by me. When my parents required new furniture and appliances, I had already equipped half of their house. Because I'm completely preoccupied with money, I meticulously kept all of the receipts for everything. Also, what was the return on investment? A family that thought I was nothing more than a walking checkbook, too nervous and uninteresting to merit a spot on their ideal vacation. My preparations began the following morning. However, before I could do anything, I had to grasp the entire extent of my contributions over the years. All weekend long, I combed through my bank records, credit card statements, and other financial documents. I meticulously organized all of my family's purchases in a spreadsheet that would have impressed my accounting professor. It was mind-boggling. In addition to the $97,000 I had estimated for mortgage payments, an additional $46,000 came from direct purchases. The price tag for the fridge was $2,900. The price tag for the living room set was $4,400. I co-signed for Emily's auto loan when it was $17,000 and have now taken over the payments after she went into default. She used to pay out of herself for things like her laptop, photographic gear, designer clothes, and medical costs when she didn't have health insurance. It was cumulative. In addition, I had been paying for minor costs that, taken together, appeared enormous. Sunday dinners with my family, where I would gladly take the bill. Whenever Mom said that they were low on something, we went grocery shopping. Emily needed gas money while she was unemployed. All members of their family, including acquaintances and extended family, received birthday and holiday presents. I took on the role of family treasurer, paying for my parents' memberships to various clubs and even taking them on spa days. I felt both gratified and horrified looking at those figures. I felt vindicated because it confirmed that my reaction was reasonable. For years I had been financially supporting this family. Sad because I had no idea how utterly gullible I had been and how much I had allowed myself to be taken advantage of. The most frustrating aspect was going back to all the instances when they had made me feel bad about not providing more. Mother had accused me of being egotistical and jealous when I was hesitant to co-sign for Emily's vehicle loan. Instead of phoning me for emergency funds, I suggested they make a budget, and my dad said I was being arrogant and had forgotten my roots. Because I had taken their judgment to heart and ignored my own needs for an extended period of time, I had lost sight of what was truly important to me. Can you remember the last time you treated yourself to something good without beating yourself up over it? To be honest, when was the last time I was able to relax and enjoy a trip without fretting over whether or not I would be able to meet my family's financial obligations? On that particular Sunday, I took a new look at the house where I had spent my childhood as I drove past it. The outside looked great. Its landscaping was exquisite. In addition, Emily's immaculately clean automobile was in the driveway. No one living here was obviously having money problems. Living above their means became second nature to this family since they knew they could always rely on someone else to help them up when they fell. My ideal apartment would be small, functional, and stocked with inexpensive, gently used furniture. I had been supporting my family's upper-middle-class lifestyle by living like a college student. The difference was hideous. I inquired about the possibility of prolonged remote work on Monday morning by calling the HR department at my workplace. I was surprised to hear that they were already planning to increase their footprint in Austin and were willing to let me work remotely, provided I kept up my productivity. Possibilities I hadn't given much thought to before were brought to light in that discussion. My home might be any place. In a new environment, unrecognizable as Emily's sister or the responsible daughter, I could begin anew. Relationships might be formed around my genuine self, not my abilities, but my presence. I set out to find alternative locations to Austin that have thriving tech cultures and more affordable housing. My inquiries kept leading me to Denver. Possibilities for outdoor recreation abound, and housing expenses are manageable. I fell in love with the mountains during my one conference visit, but I never thought of it as a possible home because of how far away from family responsibilities it felt. At last, the perceived distance was an asset, not a flaw. Figuring out where I stood legally was the next stage. A lawyer who focused in family law and asset recovery was someone I contacted and scheduled a meeting with. For every item I had bought over the years, I had pictures, receipts, and a spreadsheet to prove it. "This is quite thorough," she remarked as she perused my paperwork. "Most people don't keep records like this." "I've always been obsessive about finances," I pointed out. What I discovered about Texas gift law was both fascinating and frustrating, but I'm glad you asked since I scan and file everything. Unless you transfer title through a formal document that the receiver can use to establish it was a permanent gift, you legally maintain ownership when you buy anything as a present. Formal transfers and contracts are not typically used in family interactions. They rest on unspoken understandings and presumptions. The lawyer added that the difficulty is in establishing purpose. It may get messy if your relatives assert that they were present with the intention of transferring ownership. With the help of documented emails and text messages, I produced proof that I was just providing temporary assistance. "Look at this exchange about the refrigerator." Mom texted, "Thanks for covering this until we can pay you back. And here's Dad saying he'd make it up to me when his bonus came through." The legal representative grinned. "This changes everything. If they acknowledge these as loans or temporary assistance, you have a much stronger case for reclaiming the property." For the first time in years, I felt empowered as I stepped out of her office. I was not insane. There was no egotism on my part. Because I had been victimized by systemic exploitation, I was entitled to recover what rightfully belonged to me. I began to formulate specific strategies for the subsequent days. In cases when secrecy and promptness were paramount, such as when families were dissolving or assets were being divided, I looked into moving businesses that focused on these specific needs. I made an appointment for a consultation after seeing one that had rave reviews. Patricia, the relocation coordinator, was kind and competent. "We see this more often than you'd think," she pointed out. "Adult children who've been supporting parents and need to reclaim their contributions. The key is having proper documentation and moving quickly to avoid confrontations." "How quickly?" I put forward. "Ideally, you want everything out within 24 to 48 hours. The longer it takes, the more opportunity there is for interference or legal complications. I planned the relocation for the Wednesday following my family's departure for Europe. With a whole day to myself, I could check on everything and make sure nothing got broken or overlooked. Maintaining an air of normalcy at the last few family dinners before their travel was the most challenging part. I overheard several discussions regarding their schedule, Emily's enthusiasm for the photo ops, and their guesses as to which eateries they would visit. No one inquired about my day-to-day activities, my job, or my emotional state over my exclusion from this significant family event. Mom showed me pictures of a Paris boutique hotel they had reserved during one excruciatingly agonizing supper. "I'm in love with it," she exclaimed. I meant it when I said, "It looks lovely." Emily had found the place on a travel site. The rooms are small, but the location is ideal. "We almost upgraded to a suite that could fit 3 people, he said. I learned all I needed to know about my role in this household from the nonchalant way he responded, "Maybe next time," without making any specific plans or promises, but it was simply too pricey. I was treated as a money resource at worst, and an afterthought at best. In the meantime, Emily had been continuously updating her social media with images of her new outfits, screenshots of Instagram posts from the places they would be visiting, and countdowns to her departure from Europe. Friends were so happy for her and expressed their sorrow that she would be missed by leaving dozens of likes and comments on each post. Because no one had any idea I had been first rejected from this trip, no one was mentioning how much they missed me. After that, I began looking into it. After the family's refrigerator died 4 years ago, I researched every large purchase I had made for them. It was rightfully mine as I paid for it directly and had the receipt. This also applies to the dining room table and chairs, the washer and dryer, Emily's MacBook Pro, the new family room TV, and approximately 30 additional things, all of which accumulate to nearly $42,000. To double-check that I was aware of my rights, I consulted an attorney. Unless you specifically transfer it through a legal instrument, it turns out that you maintain ownership when you purchase anything as a gift. I was fortunate as most families don't fill out gift papers. The next thing I did was locate a stunning Denver apartment. Colorado had always been my dream home, but I'd never given it much thought because I felt a strong need to be near my family. Everything I had imagined was there: mountains, outdoor sports, and a booming tech scene. While continuing with my remote work arrangement, I gave my notice at my present apartment, arranged for movers, and began looking for a new position in Denver. It seemed as if the cosmos was finally on my side because everything just clicked into place. I enjoyed my final family supper together 2 weeks before to their departure. As they showed me their travel plans and the outfits that Emily had purchased on Mom's credit card, they were absolutely overjoyed. No one inquired as to my well-being or the latest developments in my life. "Be sure to capture plenty of photographs," I remarked, breaking into a genuine smile after months of suppressed expression. "Oh, we certainly will," Emily cooed. "I'm going to get so much content out of this. My follower count is going to explode." "I'm sure it will," he said. It was Tuesday morning when they set out. As we gathered their belongings into Dad's car, I said them farewell from the driveway. As soon as their rear lights dipped behind the bend, I retrieved my phone and abruptly ended a call. "Hi, this is Sarah Mitchell. I'd like to schedule a pickup for tomorrow morning." The movers I'd engaged were experts in handling sensitive shipments. Without interrupting or asking any questions, they worked quickly and expertly. In addition to receipts and photos, I had a comprehensive inventory of all the items I bought. In the event that there were to be any disagreements in the future, the lawyer had officialized my ownership claims. Wednesday saw the arrival of a truck and the meticulous removal of all the family gifts I had purchased. They did an excellent job with the specific handling of the refrigerator, dishwasher, and washer-dryer set. Careful attention was given to wrapping and loading the furnishings. Everything from the coffee maker and blender, to Emily's laptop, and even tiny objects were securely packed. My parents' house appeared to have been struck by the most selective tornado on Earth by Thursday evening. Everything that my parents or Emily had bought for themselves, including all the family portraits, stayed displayed on the walls. Large appliances, however, were missing, replaced with empty rooms with dangling cords and holes. Although the old sofa and coffee table from the garage were still in the living room, the TV, sound system, and entertainment center were nowhere to be found. They stored the little table and 4 chairs in the dining room. I experienced a complicated range of feelings as I walked through the house for the last time. Seeing the tangible results of my labor throughout the years was rewarding. Sadness and the noticeable absence of a refrigerator go hand in hand. I was removing myself from their everyday lives when I entered this mansion that contained decades of memories. I stood for a moment in Emily's room, staring at the empty spot where her desk had once stood. When she first enrolled in community college, I furnished her desk, chair, and light. I had hoped that she would have a dedicated study room where she could concentrate on her schoolwork. For the most part, she had used it to showcase her cosmetics and serve as a charging station for her numerous electrical devices. She had returned from the garage with her shaky little desk from middle school. Perched on top of it, her laptop gave the impression of being both heavy and unstable. I had given up on the laptop, even though I had paid for it, because it felt too intimate, too tied to her job. Now that I see the scenario though, I'm not sure whether I was generous enough. I went to my parents' bedroom and noticed the holes where their new nightstands and dresser had formerly been. Despite having painted and decorated the room, they had gone back to using the same worn-out furniture that they had used for the past 21 years. It would be hard to turn a blind eye to the striking difference. Because of how drastically it had been changed, I found myself spending more time in the kitchen. The white builder-grade refrigerator from 1997, which scarcely met the family's demands even when I was a high school student, had moved from the garage to the middle of the room. Without my coffee machine, blender, and stand mixer, which I had acquired along the years, the countertops were empty. They had even removed the microwave, which had been a countertop type from their previous flat, and was now taking up precious counter space. That this kitchen had hosted countless family meals where I had been made to feel bad about myself, or thankful for what I had wasn't lost on me. It appeared to be what it was before I added anything. The kitchen of a low-income household coping with limited resources, including outdated appliances and a small cooking area. Not maliciously, but just to capture everything, I snapped pictures of everything. For legal reasons, or in the event that my relatives sought to sue me for taking more than I had paid for, I needed photographic evidence of the condition of the house as it was when I departed. I took one last lap around the living room before I got up and left. They dug out an old couch from the garage. It had a fading floral print, something Mom had always despised. Accompanying it was a coffee table with wear and tear in the form of ring stains and a shaky side table. Before I bought this one, the guest bedroom had a little, old TV that was fine for basic viewing but lacked the size and quality of the one I now have. This room seemed frozen in time from 16 years ago, when my parents were just starting out financially and couldn't afford the things they had been used to. It served as a sobering reminder of their true financial situation prior to their eldest daughter's subsidies. As I sat at the coffee table I had purchased to replace their shaky old one, memories of spending hours here with my family watching movies or assisting Emily with her schoolwork flooded my mind. Knowing that my family had viewed my contributions as duties rather than pleasures, as proof of my position as breadwinner rather as expressions of affection and support, cast a shadow over those cherished memories. I knew I would likely never see this house again as I stood in its threshold. Our relationship would still be very different, even if my family and I were to reconcile in the end, which seemed highly improbable. If they ever needed money, or wanted to upgrade their lifestyle, I would never be the one they called. Their convenience would never again take precedence over my personal safety net. It seemed as if taking my input out of the house had diminished not only its practicality, but also its potential. A middle-class house filled with middle-class people leading middle-class lives. That's exactly what it seemed like. That wasn't inherently bad, but it was definitely not the upper-middle-class luxury they'd experienced before I helped them. After securing the door, I slid the key and the note I had written into the mail slot. I turned around as I walked to my car. I had officially ended that part of my life. As I returned the home key, I placed a note on the kitchen counter to remind myself. Please be informed that I have returned all of the products that I have purchased throughout the years. I have receipts for everything that has been removed. I have placed copies of the paperwork on the counter for your reference. I have relocated to Denver and will not be returning. You have no need to worry about the mortgage payments I've made. I've determined that I've contributed about $96,000 toward your house over the years, which more than covers the value of the items I've taken. So, consider us even. I hope you had a wonderful vacation. I now see that my role in this family was to provide financial support without receiving any emotional support in return. My new life is about to begin. Dear Sarah, P.S. Emily. I'm no longer going to pay for your lifestyle. Therefore you should probably get a job. Your laptop is in your room. On Saturday morning, I loaded up a U-Haul trailer with my personal possessions and drove away. As I ran, a weight lifted off my shoulders, as if I were letting go of years' worth of bitterness and letdown. After a trip to Europe, they got back on Sunday. At 11:37 p.m., my phone began to ring. That evening. As I set up my furnishings in my brand new Denver apartment, I began to unload the boxes. Real furniture that belonged to me. Invested my own money on this for my personal use. I remained silent. There was an endless barrage of calls, from mom and dad to Emily and even some distant relatives who had evidently joined the cause. They were all directed to voicemail by me. I got around to listening to the messages on Monday morning. My mom was inconsolable. "Sarah, what have you done? The house is empty. How could you do this to us? We're your family." The father was furious. As expected, Emily became all dramatic. "This is theft, Sarah. You can't just take things because you paid for them. They were gifts. You've ruined everything. How am I supposed to work without my computer? You're destroying my career before it even starts." Each of the 19 voicemails was more venomous than the last. They have all failed to recognize the fact that I have been providing for my family financially for a long time. Nobody ever said anything about how terrible it was to leave me out of the vacation plans. What I had taken was their only concern. They paid no attention to what I had given. All of their numbers were blocked and I erased them. On Tuesday, the lawyer I had previously consulted called me. My folks apparently reported stolen goods to the authorities. Even after my attorney faxed over all of my paperwork, the investigating officer who took the report remained professional but suspicious. "Your daughter has receipts for everything," the officer had supposedly informed my father. "She paid for it. She owns it. This is a civil matter at best, and frankly, she's got a stronger case than you do." The inbox was flooded with emails on Wednesday, each one lengthy and filled with emotional manipulation and guilt trips. Mom mentioned in her letter how humiliated she felt that the neighbors could see the house in its present condition. Concerned about the cost of rebuilding everything, Dad shifted his attention. Emily's email was a model of egotism. It described the negative effects my self-centered actions were having on her emotional well-being and her ability to think creatively. I give them a quick read before establishing an auto-delete filter. I had had enough of being the recipient of their emotional baggage. It wasn't until Friday that I began working for a tech startup in Denver. It was an interesting and demanding job. Everyone I worked with was nice, and my boss took an interest in me as an employee and my plans for advancement. My income was at an all-time high. Plus, I had complete freedom to spend every cent for the first time as an adult. A certified letter from a legal firm arrived in my mailbox 3 weeks subsequent. My parents were on the verge of suing me to get their belongings back. "Please handle this as you feel appropriate." I included a note when I sent it to my attorney. He almost couldn't control his laughter when he called me the next day. "They don't have a legal leg to stand on," stated the judge. "I'll send them a response outlining your documentation and suggest they drop this before they rack up more legal fees they can't afford." It would appear that their threats of legal action ended there. Call from my cousin Olivia came a month after that. She managed to get my new number and was the only relative with whom I had ever had a cordial relationship. "Sarah," she stated with care, "I know there are two sides to every story, but I have to ask. Did you really clean out your parents' house while they were on vacation?" "I took back the things I bought over the years," I informed him. "Everything I removed, I had paid for." The silence was quite lengthy. Asking, "How much stuff are we talking about?" I provided her with an approximate rundown. Once again, a great pause. "Jesus, Sarah, I had no idea you'd bought so much for them. They never mentioned it." The question prompted me to ask, "Are you kidding? They've been telling everyone you stole their belongings out of spite because you weren't invited on vacation. They made it sound like you took family heirlooms and wedding gifts." I asserted forcefully. "I left everything that genuinely belonged to them. Every family photo, every piece of jewelry, every item of sentimental value. I only took things I had receipts for." For an instant, Olivia remained silent. "You know what? Good for you. I always wondered why you kept giving them money when they treated you like crap." I took heart from that discussion because it offered me the possibility that not everyone would view myself as the antagonist. Emily contacted me 2 months later using an unfamiliar phone. Curiosity ultimately led me to answer, even though I nearly didn't. "Sarah," she said in a modest voice that contrasted with the passionate tone of her voicemails. "Please don't hang up." "What do you want, Jess?" Her voice barely above a whisper, she announced, "I got a job. At a marketing firm, entry level, but it's a real job with benefits and everything. Congratulations." "I wanted to apologize," she said, her voice choking. "I never realized how much you did for us. I mean, I knew you helped out, but I didn't understand the extent of it until everything was gone, and Mom and Dad couldn't replace any of it." "I'm home. They're really struggling, Sarah. Dad's talking about taking out a loan to buy a new refrigerator." Mom's been doing laundry at the laundromat because they can't afford a new washer. They were able to do it before I became involved, I stated consistently. They'll figure it out. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but couldn't you at least help with the basics, just until they get back on their feet? It was right there. She continued to demand payment even after she had apologized. No, I replied plainly. But Sarah, I spent 10 years being your family's financial safety net, I said. 12 years of my life making sure everyone else was comfortable while being treated like I didn't matter. I'm done. So that's it. You're just going to abandon us? Emily, you're 25 years old with a job and no major expenses. Mom and Dad are in their 50s with their own income and a partially paid-off mortgage thanks to my contributions. You're not abandoned. You're just not being subsidized anymore. She ended the call without bidding farewell. My high school pal Sarah, who had evidently been chatting with my mom in the supermarket, asked to be my Facebook friend 3 months later. She communicated with me. Your mom seems to think you had some kind of breakdown and moved away impulsively. She's asking people if they know how to contact you because she's worried about your mental health. Just thought you should know what story she's spreading. Sarah was thanked, and I revised my preferences about privacy. It was my family's prerogative to change my tale so that I am portrayed as the unstable daughter who had a breakdown. Important people were aware of the reality. I had flourished in my new life for 6 months. My career took a turn for the better. I gained true friends who accepted me for myself, not my abilities, and I began going on frequent hikes in the breathtaking Colorado Rockies. For the first time in years, I was able to save money without feeling guilty and purchase a new car that I selected based solely on my personal preferences. Someone I met in a hiking group was also someone I began dating. James was an honest software developer who shared my values of being frugal and forthright about how he felt. Even after I gave him a very condensed version of my family's history, he made no attempt to persuade me to make amends or even propose that we should forgive each other. He only remarked, "Sounds like you made a healthy decision," before shifting the conversation to our weekend agenda. I was pleasantly surprised by the reception I had hoped for. Olivia contacted me once more last month. "I wanted to inform you," she stated. "Your parents are planning to drive out to Denver to surprise you for your birthday." I felt numb all over. How did they get my address? I don't know, but they're convinced that if they just show up and talk to you face to face, they can convince you to come home and work things out. Olivia, I need you to understand something. I don't want to work things out. I don't want them to visit. I've built a new life here, and I'm happy for the first time in years. She uttered the words, "I understand," quite rapidly. That's why I'm warning you. Maybe you could go out of town that weekend. That was not my best effort. I contacted my attorney, who promptly sent a letter demanding that the harasser not contact me or visit my home, stating that such actions constituted harassment. Moreover, I let the front desk know that my family was not welcome and enhanced the security system of my apartment complex. My birthday was a calm and serene affair. They would never have left the building's lobby even if they drove all the way to Denver. Yes, that happened 2 weeks ago. I hope the message finally got through because I haven't heard from anyone since. The stillness has had a calming and unnerving effect. The whole lack of touch seems surprising after years of continual communication, including phone calls requesting assistance, texts on family obligations, and emails with links to items Emily wanted me to purchase. Not because I'm eager to hear from them, but because this unusual silence is making me nervous. I find myself reaching for my phone more frequently than normal. In order to fill that emptiness, I've begun engaging in new relationships and pursuits. My week now revolves around the hiking group, and I've also joined a reading club that meets at a nearby coffee shop. On weekends, I'm finally able to pursue my lifelong dream of taking a photography class, something I neglected while attending to other people's emergencies. Even though I've been careful not to bore James with the intricacies of my family problems, he has been tremendously supportive during this adjustment. After meeting a few of the other trekkers, he felt well at home among them. Being with folks who know me just as Sarah, the software engineer who enjoys mountain trails and craft beer, rather than Sarah, the family ATM with complex guilt issues, is a breath of fresh air. For the first time ever, I've also started collaborating with a financial advisor. You can't plan for the future when you're always transferring funds to aid other people. I am currently educating myself on retirement accounts, investing methods, and savings objectives, now that my income is fully independent. Opening my first individual retirement account, IRA, at the age of 28 is embarrassing, but better late than never. Upon reviewing my spending habits in the past, the advisor was taken aback. You were essentially supporting a household of 3 adults on top of your own expenses, according to her. No wonder you weren't building wealth despite having a good salary. Predictions of my financial situation in 5 or 10 years from now, assuming I keep saving at my present rate, are both fascinating and frustrating to look at. Thrilling since those are some rather big numbers. If I had enough money, I could buy a house outright, take many trips, and maybe even retire early. It annoys me because it shows that I wasted a lot of money on people who didn't value it. I've been concerned about the way my loved ones are coping with their recent situation. Olivia has provided infrequent updates, suggesting that the change has been challenging. It seems like Mom spent the first month or so after their return complaining to neighbors about how let down she was by me, presenting herself as the unfortunate victim of a breakdown caused by an ungrateful daughter. During our previous conversation, Olivia informed me, "She keeps talking about how much you've changed. She said you used to be so generous and family-oriented, and now you're selfish and cold. She seems genuinely confused about why you left." My mother's self-awareness is on full display when she fails to link their treatment of me to my departure. She blames my character transformation rather than the dysfunctional family dynamic that drove me out. At the same time, Emily has had to face the fact that she is a real grown-up with real bills now that she is 25 years old. Olivia brought up the fact that she has been griping about the fact that she is responsible for her own food and gas, and that she is having trouble making it to her new work on time due to the fact that she cannot afford to get her car fixed. She wanted to know if you would be able to lend a hand with the car, Olivia cautiously explained. I told her that ship had sailed. It's noteworthy that Emily continues to seek external solutions to her problems, despite everything that has transpired. She is unfamiliar with the concept of having to put money aside, look into financing possibilities, or change her lifestyle to fit her actual salary. It would appear that Dad has taken a more practical view of things, prioritizing the replacement of necessary items over attempting to restore their previous level of life. Along with the used fridge and washing machine that he purchased, they are surviving on smaller, older versions of all the other appliances. To make ends meet in the face of these unforeseen costs, he has reportedly been working extra shifts, according to Olivia. Olivia noticed that he appeared to be somewhat relieved, as if he was aware that they were living beyond their means, but was unsure of how to rectify the situation. The remark lingered in my mind for several days. Is it possible that my family's unsustainable lifestyle is a direct result of the financial aid I provided? Had I helped them put off the tough decisions that would have improved their financial habits in the long run? As I reflect, I can't help but think of all the years I spent stressing out over their rent, utilities, and unexpected expenses. I distinctly recall spending many sleepless nights trying to figure out how I was going to pay for that unforeseen bill or that repair. I can vividly recall the pressures of shouldering the financial burden of not just myself but also 3 other people whose careless choices had far-reaching implications. I was there to catch them every time, so they never had to worry about that. No purchase was ever turned down since they could always count on someone else to foot the bill. Because the burden was constantly placed on me, they were shielded from the true consequences of their decisions. I had wounded both herself and them while attempting to assist them. Sometimes people wonder if I'm missing my family or if I'm remorseful about my choice. To tell you the truth, it's not easy. Are the customs of my family and the folks who have known me my entire life something I long for? On occasion. Do I feel bad about being firm and not letting anyone take advantage of me? At no point. What I've realized is that just because someone is connected to you doesn't mean they can treat you badly. I've realized that being generous with money is pointless if it's not accompanied with basic decency and regard. Above all else, I've realized that my value is greater than the material goods I can sell. I used to base my entire existence on putting other people's comfort before my own. Everything in my new life revolves around my personal beliefs, aspirations, and joy. You won't believe the change. If you or someone you know is going through something similar, for example, feeling like a number rather than a person, being repeatedly given to without ever being given back, please know that you are not alone and that there are solutions available to you. No one has a right to expect you to continue supporting them financially, particularly if they show no gratitude. If someone persistently treats you like an outsider and disregards your feelings, you have no obligation to be a part of their life. Taking a break is sometimes the most self-loving thing you can do. I have accepted the truth that my family's comprehension isn't essential to my happiness, even if I doubt they will ever comprehend my departure or take responsibility for their part in driving me away. With those that welcome me with open arms, I am establishing new customs. Exciting excursions to destinations of my choosing, accompanied by people who cherish my company, are in the works. I've decided to stop supporting other people's goals and start saving for my own. Plus, I've never felt more at peace with my life as an adult than I do right now. Recent development. I wanted to give you an update on how things are doing since I relocated to Denver over a year ago. Being in a relationship for the first time is an exciting and daunting prospect, but James and I are discussing the possibility of moving in together. Along with the hiking group, he has become acquainted with a few of my new acquaintances. Unless I want to share it, no one here is aware of my family drama, and that is a tremendous relief. Things are going swimmingly at work. I'm being considered for a senior developer role, which would provide a substantial salary increase, and I've been assigned some prominent projects. When I stopped caring about other people's financial problems, my career took off, which is ironic but true. Additionally, I've begun therapy sessions with the primary goal of resolving the resentment and shame I feel toward my family. With her guidance, I've come to realize that my parents' destructive patterns of conduct predated my enabling them, and that my departure likely brought about some much-needed repercussions they'd been dodging for a long time. No one has spoken to any members of my family at all. Every once in a while, Olivia will fill me in when I ask. But I've learned to cut down on our updates, because hearing them always makes me feel down or furious. Even though they purchased pre-owned goods and scaled-down versions of everything, my parents did in the end replace the majority of the appliances I had taken with them. Emily reportedly received a little promotion while she was still employed by the marketing agency. Nothing is wrong with the house. Life continues, and everyone has enough to eat and wear. They seem to have finally come to terms with the fact that I won't be returning since they ceased requesting my contact details from Olivia. I can't help but wonder if they ever got the full story of my departure, or if they continue to view me as the selfish, harsh daughter who for some reason lost touch with reality. However, they will continue to tell themselves that story. Plus, I've given up on attempting to manage it. Contrast that with my tale. The story follows a woman who, in her 20s, helped out petty people, and, in her 30s, finally found her footing and started living the life she always dreamed of. It's about understanding the distinction between genuine generosity and being taken advantage of. You can love your family and yet opt out of their dysfunction. That's what this book is about. Whatever the future brings, I am certain that it is up to me to choose. That independence is priceless after years of catering to the wants and expectations of others. Revenge isn't always best served in a flashy or instantaneous fashion. Living successfully without those who failed to recognize your worth when they could have is sometimes all it takes. Your value exceeds the value you bring to others, and I say this to everybody who needs to hear it. You are worthy of relationships characterized by true love, respect, and understanding. Separating yourself from others who fail to see your worth is sometimes the most courageous thing you can do. You will not regret making the effort to reach the other side for the vista.